What is up, Flyover family? Welcome to the 11th episode of the Off-Season Grind Show. We have some fantastic news on Bryce Huff. We got an update on our salary cap and things of that nature, and so much more. So without further ado, let's fly on into it. So the great news on Bryce Huff is Bryce Huff agreed to a restructure of his contract to facilitate a trade to the 49ers. Trade details are right there and things of that nature. The Eagles are set to pay $9 million of this year's salary, and the 49ers are set to pay 7.95 years, not 7.95 years, but 7.95 million of this year's salary and things of that nature. So definitely happy that he's out of Philly and things of that nature. In my humble opinion, this is some of the best off-season news I've heard this year. Again, that's my opinion. It gave us $3 million in cap space, as well as BG retiring. So those two things allowed the $3.6 million, or have the case, to be freed up. It also freed up wasted roster space, taken up obviously by Bryce Huff. It got Bryce Huff off the team. How he won the trade, especially. He won the trade by far, especially given the fact that how he got something basically for nothing. Bryce the Bum Huff, is basically nothing, and that's what he got, in a trade, or however the case. So, Bryce Huff was getting took to the woodshed by tight ends and things of that nature. He was tripping over his own feet. He was one of the most overpaid defensive players last year in the league. Individually last year. I'm not saying he's one of the most all-time overpaid players, no, but he's, at least that year individually, making $17 million. Definitely overpaid. One of the most overpaid players in the league last year. So again, the facts that Howie made up for the move, or however the case, despite missing on Huff, or however the case, he got some money back, or however the case, and now we're top 10 in cap space remaining. So glad that he's gone and things of that nature. Wish him the best in his future endeavors. But like I said, I am glad that his time in Philly is done. In terms of the salary cap update and where we rank versus the rest of the league, prior to anything, we had about 22.1, just about 22.1 million. So with Darius Slay and James Bradbury being designated as post-June cuts, Bradbury's cut provides 2.1 million in cap space relief, and then Darius Slay's cut provides 4.3 million in cap space relief. So that's 6.42 in total. In terms of Slay, I think it was the perfect time to let him loose. Saying that Jalen Hurts wasn't even elite, that's just dog water. And also, to be basically hanging out with the enemy and whatnot, and dissing his teammates and things of that nature. I mean, snake stuff, to say the very least. But in my opinion, I kind of wanted him gone after 2023. He was on his podcast saying that he played great and the team played bad and things of that nature. In my opinion, that's just soft. I have no respect for that at all. James Bradbury, yeah, sure, he had a bad year in 2023, but I ain't really got nothing against him, or however the case. He didn't try to act like something he wasn't, or however the case. Yeah, sure, he had a great year with us, or however the case, and fell off in the Super Bowl, and hasn't really been the same since. But still, respect him, or however the case. Wish him, the best in his future endeavors. So in total, that's about 10 million in cap relief. Obviously 22 plus 10, or however the case, is 32. So as of now, we have 32.1 million in cap space, which is top 10 in the league, which is 10th to be exact, which is top 10. So let's do some math real quick. I have 32 teams in the NFL. We have more cap than 22 of them. So that means there's only 9 teams, since we're number 10. There's only 9 teams that have more cap than us. So despite Howie missing, big on Bryce Huff, or however the case, with $17 million a year, however the case, he is clearing up cap space and things of that nature. He's still doing circles around the rest of the league, and if need be, he can make a big swing in a trade and things of that nature. Anything's possible. So now, on top of being Super Bowl champs, on top of us having a great current team, Saquon Barkley, he's only 27, 28. Jalen Hurts, he's only going to get better. I do not believe it's ever too late for any position. If anybody says, oh, it's too late for somebody to improve, okay, unless the guy's 50 years old, or however the case, he has no athleticism left, or however the case, they can improve something. If they're in the league, they can improve. If somebody says they can't improve, unless it's a personality thing, they can improve. Physically, they can improve. You can get better at coverage. You can get better at catching. You know what I'm saying? You can get better at throwing the football, which everyone says is his only problem. He can run, He's better at securing it and whatnot. He's getting better at reading the defense, pre-snap adjustments. So I firmly believe that it's never too late, specifically for a quarterback in skilled positions, wide receivers, tight ends. You can always get better, even O-linemen. You can always get better. Whoever says otherwise doesn't know football. That simple. You can always get better at the game of football. I never believe, he is what he is, or however the case may be. Even that. As of right now, he's a choke artist, or however the case, but at the end of the day, if he wins a couple playoff games, or however the case, I don't think he will. That's my personal opinion. I don't think he will, but if he does, then, he can change the narrative about him. It's just a fact. Anybody can. It's never too late for anybody to change the narrative on him. Never. It's never too late. Now, is it logical? Will that actually happen? Those are completely different topics in a completely different discussion. Now, in terms of us, or however the case, absolutely, we have a great team. Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, and things of that nature. We can get better. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, they're absolute beasts. They're monsters. Not saying they can get better, or however the case, but they, little small things that they notice. In my opinion, they're both superstars. They need to get better. I don't see nothing wrong with AJ's game. I don't see nothing wrong with Devontae Smith's game. They're both really good route runners. They're both really good at catching the ball, tough catches, catching in traffic. But I'm just saying, if they determine that they can get better at something, heck yeah, I believe it's never too late to improve. My personal opinion. And again, we also have top 10 cap space remaining. We're in a great, we're definitely in a great spot to start the season. Again, 32.1 million, I think it was, is definitely, enough money if need be, in quest for a repeat. We definitely can take a big swing. So yeah, definitely excited to see, where we're at week one, or however the case, from a chemistry and winning standpoint. Because I'm not a big stats guy, or however the case may be. I'll pull them up, or however the case, or whatever. But, at the end of the day, you gotta win. If you can throw for 300 yards in a game, or however the case, once the game's already over, then where's it at once you really need it? It's versus the same team. But once the other team pulls their starters out, or however the case, then you start doing something, it's garbage. It doesn't really mean nothing. That's why you actually have to watch. He had 280 yards, wasn't his fault. Oh, he was 20 for something, or however the case. But yeah, what about the first three quarters? Couldn't connect the pass, however the case may be, but eventually, if you have all those monstrous stats, you got to win. Jamire Charter Sr., he had this to say about Jalen Carter. He said, "Nothing he's doing surprises me. Word on the street, he doesn't even know how to play the position yet. From guys I talked to inside, he doesn't even know how to play it yet. He's just playing off of raw talent. The sky's the limit for this kid. I'm excited about his future." Now, some people may take it as controversial, and may take it as a dig or an insult, or however the case may be. In my opinion, Jamire Trotter Sr., the Axeman, he is one of the greatest Eagles to ever live. He knows what he's talking about. He knows football. And even then, I don't doubt that he still talks to some players, some coaches, etc. He probably does have some connections in Philly, or however the case may be. Now, in terms of Jalen Carter not knowing how to play the position, I'll happily take it. I'm by no means a know-it-all expert, but Jalen Carter could have fooled me. It definitely looks like he knows how to play the position. Again, I'm by no means a know-it-all. I'm not trying to act like I know every single microscopic thing about the game, or however the case may be. I love my Philadelphia Eagles. I'm a big fan of football in general. I can respect a good play regardless of who has the helmet on, or however the case, and what helmet it is, or however. I can appreciate a good play of football. I love football, just as much as I love the Eagles, but I love the Eagles way more. I know it doesn't make sense, but still. But yeah, so as of right now, in my personal opinion, he's a top 5 defensive tackle currently in the NFL, and he's only played 2 years. You know what I'm saying? So far, it's more than fair to say he can dramatically grow and improve a lot in terms of production, leadership, mentor, and all that good stuff. So while some may find it controversial, I find it to be a compliment. Imagine being so naturally gifted, you can fool everybody into voting you a Pro Bowler. Usually people that are naturally gifted, yeah, like they're okay or have a case, but he's been a Pro Bowler. I mean, look it up. It's on Sports News. It's on every website you could possibly look up or however. He is in fact a Pro Bowler, and the fact he can do that night in and night out, and your ceiling to be that high. Imagine that. Just imagine that. Imagine your ceiling being so high, being so naturally gifted. You can fool basically people or have the case with your dominance or have the case to voting you to be a Pro Bowler. Usually people that are just physically gifted, yeah, they're okay, but a mental piece. But no, he looks like a star already. So, I mean, that has to be a compliment to some degree. And as well, I definitely think, he has more than enough time to refine his technique or improve in any way him or the coaching staff see fit. I believe in how to surround him with proper coaching. I can obviously trust Fangio and Clint Hurtt to do their part. And based on what I've seen so far, I can definitely trust Jalen Carter to keep putting in that work and keep improving wherever he needs to improve on. I don't have any problem with what Trotter said. I don't have any problem, with Jalen Carter. Have the case. I'm still rocking with Jalen Carter. For crying out loud, for a guy who's only going into his third year, of course he's not going to be a know-it-all. With absolutely flawless technique. I got absolute massive love for Jamire Trotter Sr., one of the greatest Eagles to ever live. He knows football. He is an OG. And Jalen Carter, have the case, I have no issue with it whatsoever. I love Jalen Carter. If anything, I'm even more sold on Jalen Carter. A couple more years with Clint Hurtt and Vic Fangio, anything's possible. And speaking of the defensive coaching staff, but before we get too much off of Vic Fangio, he gave us a lot of important information and a lot of stuff to talk about. He was asked how they would utilize Jihad Campbell. He said that he'll start out at interior linebacker because there's a lot more to learn there and whatnot, and that he won't even practice till August. So again, that is before the season, or have a case that is before September. But that is definitely encouraging to see, or however the case, see, how he looks, on an NFL practice field and things of that nature versus, NFL players and things of that nature. So definitely excited for that. He also said that Nakobe Dean will also be out for a bit longer. He was asked about the edge position, and he said that he feels good about Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt, and he thinks that the edge position will be fine. He mentioned Aziz. He mentioned some of the other guys. He was asked about like the cornerback situation, Cooper DeJean or however. He said that he would like to keep DeJean at nickel, and then in the base, find a spot for him at corner or safety. And he definitely has the and Vic Fangio said that he has the ability to play them, in terms of outside and corner, outside corner and safety. And then he was asked about the Eagles picking up the fifth-year option on Jordan Davis. He said that was Howie's decision, that he had nothing to do with it, and that he's in the best shape of his career, and that he thinks Jordan Davis will do very, very well next year. And, when Vic was asked, like as a follow-up to that, he was asked what took so long for him to get in the best shape of his career. He said himself, hey, we could be here a long time for that, that he's ducking the question. He said that himself. That's honesty. He said, I'm not answering that question, we could be here for a long time. His blunt honesty and the old school mentality he has is the main reason why he's the perfect coordinator for the players and the fans here. The players, because look at last year. Not many defensive coordinators could have turned that and what he had to work with into what he did. Number one defense, or advocates, number one versus the pass, top 10 versus the run. Obviously Bryce the bum Huff, Slay getting hurt almost every single game, having to adjust to that. Still being number one versus the pass. Whenever your number one corner is getting hurt almost every single game, that's constantly overlooked. Like I'm not seeing anybody ever talk about that. Slay was getting hurt almost every single game. With all the other guys he was working out. Christian Parker, the DB's coach, he definitely did his part there, in terms of making sure the backups are ready to take over when need be. And definitely they were, specifically almost every single game, whenever Darius Slay was going out. Not having a premier edge. Obviously, Josh Sweat, he was close. In my opinion, the premier edge is 10 sacks, in my opinion, in the regular season. Josh Sweat, he had 8 in the regular season, if I'm not mistaken. losing a darn good BG or however the case. He was playing darn good whenever he got hurt or however the case. There were certain games, he was the best edge on the field by far. Jordan Davis or however the case being situational, that could be viewed as a weakness. Then having, the number one defense, and shut down Mahomes. But man, in terms of us fans, with most DC's head coaches, GMs, owners, etc., you can never get a straight answer. It's like asking politicians a question, regardless of your political stance, regardless if it's Republican, regardless if it's liberal, regardless of how you stand. It's like asking either side a question on either side. For the most part, it's just beating around the bush or however the case. Just so scared to speak or however the case. If Stephen A. Smith's dumbass can say stupid shit or however the case and keep signing higher and higher paid extensions or however the case, players, coaches, ownership, and things of that nature. I mean, I feel like Lurie's pretty honest, and I feel like Howie's pretty honest for the most part. Obviously, he doesn't want to let all his moves be known. Heck yeah. But in terms of the coaching staff or however the case, then that's one thing, that I really like about Fangio or however. He's really straightforward. Instead of sugarcoating and all that or however the case. My main point is his to the best of his ability, he answers questions and he doesn't pick favorites or however the case. He plays whoever's best, and he'll play, them regardless of how much you're paid or how much the fans like you or hate you or however the case. Bryce Huff, who made $18 million last year, proves that. A healthy scratch in the Super Bowl. He's one of the only few, in my opinion, that tells it like it is, for better or for worse. But in terms of the interview, it's good to see that, we do have some sort of expected date on when Jahad Campbell's going to be practicing and things of that nature. And again, in terms of Jordan Davis, I appreciate the honesty there. However the case, he said he didn't want to answer the question. Instead of making up a story, or however the case he was honest, I'm not answering that. I'm ducking him. Hey, if you're honest about it, it's better than beating around in the bush and still basically ducking it. At least you're being straightforward about it. I can honestly respect that. Heck yeah. And then in terms of DeJean or however the case, I think he can play any DB role. I think he can play safety, nickel, the dime, anything. But yeah, overall, definitely a lot of exciting stuff there. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for choosing Philly Flyover, where you get authentic Eagles passion you can trust. God bless. Philly out. Peace.